Well. You're listening to Gloves Off with Professor Buitrón. Alright then, I may say words on point, straightforward. No jibber jabber, everybody forward. Issues, facts and solution. Get it at Gloves Off with Professor Buitrón. Alright, what other thing is a revolution? Get it on point with Professor Buitrón. Gloves Off, no nonsense issues, politics, community. A better men follow reader. Gloves Off, a revolutionary show with everything that you need to know. With Professor Buitrón. Watch ya!
The following political paid advertisements do not reflect the political opinions of the program or its associates. Any political campaign or candidate who wishes to purchase advertising can do so. Advertising is open to all on behalf of Gloves Off.
And I'm Professor Buitrón. I'm here with Judge Nathan Chu, and we're going to be touching base about a couple of things with divorces and how it affects everybody. The steps to and what you do during. Good morning, Judge. How we doing?
Oh, how you doing, sir? Glad to be here.
No, glad you're here. And we've always touched base about a bunch of different topics. I think this is a topic that kind of you've dealt with in your law practice as well.
Yes, sir. We do a lot. So, as a private attorney handling family cases, the family cases stem from suit affecting parent-child, which means that that's just a separation between two parties that are not married. And what we do there is we establish one is mom, one is dad. We establish child support, and we establish possession, access, and visitation. The other aspect of it is for married couples, and that's the big divorce. And that involves a little bit more, involves pretty much in a legal divorce, or in some cases where they determine that there is a common law marriage, then there is assets, there's properties, there's debts, there's liabilities to split up.
Absolutely. And a lot of those, besides the assets, a lot of issues within a divorce, that when they do have children, right? When they do have children, there's a lot of steps both parties have to understand what to do, right?
Yeah.
If one goes in there and says, you know what, counselor, I want to get a divorce, but I have 2 kids. I'm the father. What would you suggest?
Well, Paul, it's a trying time because, number one, the relationship is ending.
Sure.
These folks have been together, 1 year, 10 years, 20 years, and all of a sudden their personal relationship is ending. And it may be amicable. Most times it's very caustic and very bitter. So it's kind of difficult for them to sit down together and actually think about the children. Most times they come in, they're thinking about how can I hurt the other person as they've hurt me. So that's what I receive as a private practicing attorney doing these type of family cases, folks coming in like that with that anger.
And what would be the first steps? Would you send both of them to kind of get anger management, or you just don't deal with that, or what would you be?
Well, as a private attorney handling these cases, I don't send both of them. I represent one party or
Sure.
the other, either mom or dad. I'll talk to them, I'll get their mindset, and then ask them what their goals and desires are. I mean, is it their goals and desire to protect their asset, protect their retirement, pay the least child support, or is it their goals to visit and spend the most time with their children? And sometimes those don't coincide.
Where would this coincide? Because I think both parents that love their children should have equal parenting rights, and that's not the case here in Texas.
It's not the case, and sometimes it's not the case for everybody.
Sure.
You've got certain parents that say, you know what, I am busy with my work. Even if I have equal access to my children, I don't want it just because I don't have the time for that. So that's the mindset that hasn't changed in people's lives, because they've just picked off where they were in the marriage, right? So in the marriage, normally you'll have one person that will take care of the children, and the other person goes out and becomes the breadwinner. At the separation of the marriage, that still doesn't change. That one person that continues to work will continue to work. The other person that hasn't worked, now they've got to get out and they've got to work. But in the meantime, there's going to be significant changes with the children. And you've got two different households, two different personalities, and then the children are caught in the middle.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of things that affect kids. There's a term out there or a little phrase called parent alienation. And it's always taken for granted that it stems with those wearing the black robes, and it kind of diffuses into the parent that's more the custodial parent.
Right.
And then it kind of takes it from there. But parent alienation, as I've read and I've got more involved into it, not only does it extend with the father or the mother being alienated, it also extends with grandparents, with uncles and aunts and nephews, and it extends out. It's something that affects not only one person, but an extended family as well.
Well, the way that I look at it, I think a family dispute, a divorce dispute, is probably similar to a war between two different countries. Until they can get together and talk about a ceasefire peace treaty, they'd have to stop the fighting.
Absolutely.
And the alienation you're talking about is just the fact that constantly when they're fighting with each other, the kids are overhearing. They may not do it directly. It can be in their demeanor, their action, their attitude towards the old spouse, that the kids will see and they'll feel it. And then they're with that one parent or the other, they're like, well, I don't want to disappoint mom.
Absolutely.
I don't want to make her unhappy if I'm spending too much time with dad, and vice versa. And the kids, it's difficult. I've seen it, throughout the years.
I've seen the alienation of that occur, and I've also seen the alienation with a lot of fathers out there that I've talked to, with all of a sudden it's visitation on Friday, and you go pick them up, and they tell you you're not going to see them.
So that's something that has to be strictly enforced and remedied. It's that the behavior of the parties. I mean, if it's your time, it's your time, and
Absolutely.
Folks shouldn't mess around with that. And all it does is just hurts the children.
And with that being said, there's laws here in Texas that help out for interference with visitation rights, correct?
It does. It takes a lot of cooperation between local law enforcement and the parties. Normally, what we recommend is have the parties have their order in hand, have their order of visitation, have the time clearly in that order signed by the judge, so that if they do need to call local enforcement for help, the order is there to help them.
And personally, as well as many others, have run into the problem when this does occur, and you do call law enforcement comes in. First thing they say, it's a civil matter, which it's not a civil matter. It's actually a breaking of the law. How would you say the whole law enforcement community needs to get together to change that perspective?
It's a hard one, Paul. I mean, you're talking about a bright line enforcement of this rule, and if you do, then you're talking about moms and dads that are disobeying this laws, going to jail, getting booked, and spending the night in jail. In the meantime, you have the children there not understanding what's going on. Why is my mom going to jail? Why is my dad going to jail? So that is the reality of enforcing that law. So that's the reason why some areas just take on the policy of saying this is a civil matter, we don't want to touch it.
Okay, that'll be good. Now, when you get a client that comes in and says, you know what, counselor, I'm not being allowed to see a child. I mean, fathers and mothers out there that go through this, how can we remedy this? What are my steps for me to be able to see them? What
Sure.
would you tell them?
So if they're not married, then I ask them, have you established parentage? Have you established in the court that you are the parent and that you have legal access to your children? If they say, no, we have not, then what we do is we start a suit to establish parentage. That suit will establish parentage. That suit will establish child support and visitation and access. On those that already have the visitation and access, and the first thing we do is, well, when are you denied and how are you denied? And if they are denied and it's violating the judge's order, then we do something called a motion for enforcement.
And what does that entitle a motion for enforcement?
So motion for enforcement, there is a court order, so that's pretty much the order of the judge, a contract between the parties and the judge. Violation of that, the judge can hold those parties in contempt. They can fine them $500 for each violation and put them in jail for up to 180 days. So basically what that entails is a petition to the court saying such and such party has failed to allow me access to my children, and each incident is a violation. So you have to detail each incident.
Correct. There's some other issues that go out there when I talk to a lot of these parents and fathers, and some of them are like, she doesn't allow me to see my child because I'm behind 2 months in child support. I lost my job, and she doesn't want me to see that. If you pay child support or not, are you still allowed to see your child in visitation rights?
Yeah, the payment of child support, or the lack thereof of payment of child support, does not go hand in hand. They're not mutually exclusive of the other.
Right.
So your right to visit with your children is your absolute right. Your obligation to pay child support is an obligation. If you fail to do that, then there are consequences for that. So as there are consequences for not paying child support, there's also consequences on the custodial parent for not allowing you to see your children.
Absolutely. What would be the first thing that you'll tell folks right now as a counselor, as an attorney? Tell them, think about what you're doing, think about and how you're going to act and behave with your children. What would you tell them first?
So because I come from a Marianist teaching up there in St. Mary's, Paul, I have to wear not only the attorney hat, I also wear the counselor hat. So when they come into my office like that, I also become the counselor and the attorney, and I tell them, hey, look, have you tried talking to the other party? Have you tried counseling? Have you tried, I know you're no longer together, but can you be friends and talk to each other because it concerns the best interests of your children? So those are things we go through before we plan out a battle strategy.
Absolutely. And that's, what I tell everybody else. When you have your children, you tell them straightforward that you love them. Never call the mom a name, never call your ex a name, vice versa. Those are the things that you don't do.
So in a perfect world, that
doesn't happen.
But a majority of the time, it does not.
Absolutely. In the perfect world, it should be the same way, but it doesn't happen, And so you have to be truthful, never lie to your kids. Tell them exactly. And there's a difference in age brackets as well.
Yeah.
The older they are, they can understand a little bit more about the visitations and so on and so forth.
And
the younger they are, they really don't know.
So, back to the child support issue and the visitation issue, the thing is that everybody is in each other's lives.
Sure.
The children are involved in both lives.
Mm-hmm.
So when you have one party saying, I have no money to pay, yet they live in a new home, drive a brand new car, and wear expensive clothes, and the children that visit them tell that and report that back to mom, and then mom is seeing these variances, then that's where the lies build upon the lies. It was like, well, that's what broke up your relationship, probably. It'll continue to be a problem in this
Absolutely.
relationship with the children because you can't be truthful to each other just on the simple fact is if you have an obligation to meet that obligation.
Absolutely. And that's like I said, can't lie. You have to be straightforward. But let's do this. What was your first time when you went into court and you were representing that a father or a mother that was not allowed to see the child, what were your feelings in that time when you were in front of the judge? What did you say? Did it, explain that?
Well, I mean, the thing is that we explained to the judge, it's a policy of the state of Texas to maximize the time with of the children with both parents. So we have that standing policy in place that, the children need to spend the most amount of time with mom and dad. And for one party to deny the children their time with either mom and dad, the other, that's going against the policy, that's against the best interest of the children. It's going to hurt them mentally and emotionally to grow as a person, because now they can't interact with the other person that they either call mom or dad.
Absolutely. There's a lot of talk about 50-50 parenting,
Right.
where both parents have equal rights. Do you think that's beneficial for Texas?
That's very beneficial, but you forget the underlying issue always is it comes down to dollars and cents.
Sure.
Okay, so that's what's been stopping everybody, because in a relationship before the split, the income was never 50-50. The income was 50-50 because that's part of the marriage relationship, but one party did not work and the other party did work. Upon separation, now you have one party keeping that income, and the party that did not work now has to go and work. So you're seeing a disparity, over 2 times, 3 times, 5 times, sometimes 10 times more the income difference.
Understood about the income brackets of money. Talking about visitation rights and should there be 50-50? Of course, a lot of people say, you know what, we should bring in 50-50 and we don't pay child support. I'm not talking about that. You still have to pay child support. Talking about visitation rights.
But that's always been hand in hand with each other. They haven't been separated, because everybody that's pushed for 50-50 is also pushed, if I'm spending equal time with my kid, then I don't need to pay. That's always been together. So until you get a scalpel to carve out that issue, then we can move forward.
Okay, I understand that rationale, but I understand. There has to be a mediation between everybody.
There has to be some sort of set formula.
Right.
So once that formula is in place, and hey, look, we've been married together for 10 years. This person has been the main breadwinner. This person has been the housewife or husband that's been caring for the children. How do we compensate them for that? How do we get them on their feet? How do we get them to the same income level? Because if one party lives in $1 million house and the other party's renting an apartment, how is that even the same?
No, you're absolutely correct. And there's a lot of issues that come into that and that come into play. And what I hear this from a lot of fathers that I've talked to, and some mothers here in town locally that have issues with that. And the first thing that I hear is, you know what, they're not allowing me to see my child because I'm late 2-3 months. I was laid off. Okay, that's one issue. She does want me to see my child, and it's been 2 years since I've seen my child. That's a lot, She interferes every time I have my child. There's always an argument and so on and so forth when I do have my child. So there's a lot of little factors that arise into that. There's nobody there's no father that I've ever talked to that says, you know what, I do not want to pay child support. It's always, do I want to visit? I'm sure that there's deadbeats, dads out there like everybody says.
I invite you to sit in the child support court Monday through Friday. And you can interview all of them there, and you would see how many fathers that don't want to pay child support.
I'm pretty sure there's a lot. And I think that's what we need to do. I think we need to come down with a bridging gap of what is the balance for everybody, right?
Yes.
And where would that start?
That would start with the actual parties being honest with themselves, like you said. The person that's been not able to visit with their children for 2 years, okay, you ask them, what affirmative steps have you taken? What have you done
To see them.
to exercise your rights?
Absolutely.
You're complaining about it, but what have you done? Tell me. What resources have you used? What are you doing?
And I think that's the ballpark of here. People are not educated about what needs to be done. And I think that needs to be in a different format, and I think that has to happen. The county, I believe, to me, 'cause this is a county matter because it's inside the county courts, right? Most of them should have some type of counseling that aids for that matter.
They do. They have parent coordinators in court
Mm-hmm.
that'll actually talk to the parties. We have a standing order every time a case is filed for the parties how they need to interact and treat each other. But those are the ground books, and sometimes the plain rules parties are not abiding by that because it goes back to the same thing. Their relationship ended because they didn't trust each other, and they're constantly doing things to each other to hurt each other intentionally, just because they're still mad about the breakup.
Absolutely. And there's some issues, you know, I got divorced several years ago, but there's some issues that I've seen, and I always thought that it was geared to the father, but it's actually parent alienation goes with both sides, both
It
spectrums.
goes with both sides. It goes with either mom or dad. It goes with one party that have the children will alienate the other parent that does not have the children. And the thing is that, you know, right now, as it stands, like I said, the law is there is no presumption either for one parent or the other. The standard is the best interest of the children. What is the child's best interest, and who makes the best decision, you know, for the child to live with?
Correct. And when we're looking and they're talking to the different groups, I ended up finding out that there's equal parenting for both, and I think that's what needs to happen.
Yes.
I think everybody needs to come down to the betterment of the child for equal parenting for both sides. Doesn't matter who was a breadwinner, who wasn't. If you both love the child, I think you should have equal time with them. But aside, you do have to pay child support and so on and so forth.
But the heart of the issue, Paul, is going to be the relationship between the two adults that made the child. So unless that relationship, because you asked me what is key, that is key.
That is key.
So
That's number one.
So if those two adults cannot talk to each other, cannot communicate, cannot act for the best interest of the child, then everything breaks down. Anything that we have, anything that we write down, any judge that puts the rules down, or if they end up in jail, it's still not going to change their attitude.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're going to try to get some movement here going in Laredo. I hope you can join us for that and kind of give us your counsel, because we need people like you that see the war front every day, see the battles that go on in the courtroom, and tell everybody, hey, wait a minute, these are the options. Because some people are just going out there with feelings, and we cannot go out there with feelings. We have to see the whole spectrum.
They're going out with feelings, and they're going in with blinders, and also most of the times they're not truthful to themselves. It's like, you know, you have to be truthful about the problem that you've created. So until they back off from that, then they can make the situation better.
Awesome. Judge, it's always a pleasure.
Thank you for having me.
And folks, if you're going through some problems, and if you're thinking about getting a divorce, or you're already in a divorce, or you've been divorced, like the judge says, both parents need to come down and start shaking hands for the benefit of the child. Till next time, peace.
Bye-bye.
following political paid advertisements do not reflect the political opinions of the program or its associates. Any political campaign or candidate who wishes to purchase advertising can do so. Advertising is open to all on behalf of Gloves Off.